Okay, we are back once again. I'd keep numbers on these things, but I'm just going to lose track of it, so why bother? This thing's showing you all the fun things I'm up to over here on this side, over yonder here. It doesn't matter. Okay, we're still on the same slide. Don't you love it, man? I need to I need to figure out what's happening here. Okay. Anyway, now we're just going to give you the concept of big data. And I think that's just so funny because sometimes things get so beyond the scientists who come up with the big terms that are supposed to make them look smart and make us look kind of stupid so that they get to stay experts and we get to stay in awe of them. And sometimes it just gets too much and they come up with a term that you actually have a decent chance of understanding. It's not Latin. It's called big data. And it's a silly term because what it means is it means you got a lot of data. Somebody figured out that that's all you do with Latin was you take a very simple term and you translate into Latin, and then everybody goes, ooh, wow, you must be smart. And you go, you're such a bonehead. But that's what it's all about, is trying to make sure that the other guy looks like a bonehead, right? Just remember that. If anybody's trying to prove to you how smart they are, it's just because they're throwing simple Latin terms at you and you're sitting there being awed by it. Don't let it go, man. Don't let it happen. Okay. Going to give you another one of my interesting analogies. You can figure out whether you like it or not. I used to work offshore, which means all kinds of weird things. Nobody knows what that means. It usually means you work on an oil rig. It doesn't in my case. I used to work in oil exploration. You'd be on a boat, and the boat would be going around dragging these long streamers behind them. And in each one of those streamers would be a hydrophone. There's some of that Latin. It just means a big ear. Actually, it means a water ear. Hydrophone, water ear. And what this thing does is you put it out in the water behind the boat, you drag it along, you make big noises in the front. We used to do it with guns, air guns. Used to do it with dynamite. That was kind of cool. I never got to do it with dynamite, but it sounded cool. But now it gets done with these big, huge air guns. Big pop guns. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. That sound goes down to the bottom of the ocean floor, goes down through the ocean floor a little bit, and bounces back up. The little hydrophones pick up the noise, send that noise back. It all gets taken from analog to digital. We digitize it, stick it in computers, and we analyze this stuff. And it tells us what things kind of look like under the ocean floor. So we can look for the kind of strata that traps oil, and we know where to drill for oil, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so you guys kind of get a bird's eye view of what I used to do out there. So the only problem is you are on a boat, and boats have a bad habit of being full of diesel fuel, so they're like a huge big bomb. Well, actually, they're not. I've never seen diesel fuel actually explode. I've seen it burn a lot. I spent a week at Delgado Community College in Alexandria, Louisiana. It was an interesting week full of stark raving freaking fear, man, because it was firefighting school. It was Marine firefighting school. When you're locked up inside a tin can and that tin can just has artfully strewn diesel fuel everywhere, this is a recipe for disaster. And so they were trying to prepare us for looming disaster. So we all learned how to fight huge diesel fires with whatever was at hand. I thought you needed lots of, really amazing protective gear. They gave us nothing. They gave us what's called a slicker suit, which is a plastic suit, mostly made to keep water from just drenching you. It has absolutely no ability to protect you from fire. But that's what they gave us because that's what we'd have on there. You aren't going to have a whole bunch of stuff. You may have one guy that gets to suit up in something that might actually protect him vaguely from fire. The rest of the people have to just deal with what they got, which is nothing. Which is you're just trying to make sure you can still function when you're having to spray so much water around to try to cool things down to get rid of a fire. So I got to learn how to use a freaking fire hose. And that's tricky. Because let me tell you, the amount of water coming out of that fire hose at any given moment is just immense. I think they told us once how much it was, but it was just too much. You have to get used to too much. That's what this whole thing is about, is handling things that you get too much of. Taught us how to really lean into the fire hose. I mean, you have to practically lay down on the ground and dig yourself in somewhere, which is tricky to do on a boat that's full of metal that you can't dig into. But you find ways. You find ways. And, putting out here, let me get you the hose. And you're just trying to control this hose. The biggest thing you do is just try to make sure that the hose is pointed the way you want it to go and try to find a way to make sure it does that. And it takes all the strength you have. It takes your entire body leaning into it to counterbalance this huge flood of water coming out one end. Just amazing. And it's all a big study on managing stuff that really is, on a certain level, kind of unmanageable. Water's going to do what water's going to do. At best, you can try to direct it a little bit. Welcome to management. So that it accomplishes something. I'm not going to tell you all about firefighting because that's not really important right now. The most important thing to do is to know that this is a question of capability. This water has amazing capability, but how come I have so many water analogies? That's just weird. Anyway, I guess I've dealt with it a lot being at sea. Spent two years there, and all my best stories come from my salty sea days. Capability outstrips our capacity. We use technology to help augment our capacity or our capability to deal with increased capacity. Ooh. I'm starting to sound like one of those scientist philosopher types, right? Who are like, ooh, is he going to start spouting Latin? Maybe I will. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, so here we go. So we've talked last video about capacity. We talked about capability on this one. We're going to keep playing with these things because this really has to do with managing stuff like big data, which we're talking about, which is like a fire hose flood coming at you too fast of data. What do you do with it? How do you manage it? The analogy with that water hose and how to put out a fire is just saying you manage it enough to take care of what you need to do right at the moment. I'm not worried about how much I rust out this bucket that I'm having to float in and I live in. Oh my gosh. I just want to get the fire out. I'll deal with the repercussions later. Anyway, so that isn't a bad metaphor for how you deal with big data. So we'll be back in a little bit and we'll talk more about the next slide. Boy, it's getting bad when I have to use two videos to discuss one slide. Whoa. It's getting bad. But that's how I roll. Have fun. I like I always said, I hope this stuff's useful to you and that you grok some of the things I'm trying to get across to you because I think it'll really help you at some point. Have a great day.